Okay, this is what we've got going on tonight. So we've got 11 cilantro plants. I've got about 8 spots here available to repot these into 5-inch containers. Obviously, I'm not gonna have enough, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna repot all the largest ones, leave the smallest ones behind, and allow them to stay in the 3.5 inch for a little bit longer until I figure out what I want to do with them, or just maybe repot them into another tray around this size with a couple more of these 5-inch. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna just go along with this little repotting and see how this goes. What I try to do is get a little bit of soil in there, fill it up about a quarter of the way, and then start to remove some of these. As you can see, fully root bound. It doesn't take too long at all. These cilantro roots grow really nice and deep, so it's just about time for me to repot. Just made this soil. My last soil mix had a lot less worm castings. Probably not the best idea. I realized that a lot of the plants in this last set of plants I've grown a lot slower. And I think it's probably because of the lack of nutrients from the worm castings, what would normally be there. So this time around, I'm not doing that again, making sure that I do things the right way. Sometimes you skimp out on things and it's gonna be fine, but it wasn't ideal, and I found that the plants were growing a lot smaller. Especially germinations. Germinations are coming up really slow, and I'm like, it's a little bit different. Especially my holy basil. My holy basil usually sprouts pretty quickly, but this time around, it's pretty slow. Along with these cilantro. The cilantro has been taking quite a while. Cilantro grows a little bit slower anyway, but I feel like definitely the worm castings being omitted in the last seed starting mix definitely played a role in that. All right, so what I've got here is a fish and seaweed fertilizer from Organic Neptunes. Pretty on point. What I do, I mix a gallon's worth of it prior to doing this, so then I can water the plants in as I'm repotting. So it's all a process. And what I've got here as well, I've got the 2 trays. So I've got one tray that has the holes on the bottom, and then the other one that doesn't. So the one that doesn't is on the bottom, so the water can just kind of drain through and the water doesn't pile up in here. So, and on average, what I try to do, I do about 1.5 cups of water. Estimating, just a roundabout amount until everything is nicely saturated. Again, just the nutrients in the fertilizer will just help boost everything up a little bit as well. Put that to the side. What I love about this is that you can get into a nice little flow. Rinse and repeat. Probably go for this one next. I'm gonna get into a nice little flow with this. Right, that is dry. So could have done a little bit better with the watering with this one right here last time around, so it will get a little bit more water when I do my top off with the soil here. What I like to do as well is get the soil to a point where the plant is just creeping out, not too low in the pot, but just enough. Gives it a little bit more space to grow when you give it a little bit more soil. So if you put it right here, it can just sit nicely on top, and then you go from there. I'm so glad I got this soil mix set up today. It makes a big difference. Once it's in the pot, you're just trying to level things out. At least that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get everything so everything's nicely leveled out. And if you don't get it is kind of high up in the pot as you'd like, it's completely fine. The plants are still gonna grow, but it's just a preference thing. Definitely works better with certain plants that have deeper roots and you might give it a little bit more space, but I'm just trying to get them repotted, get them into some fresh soil. That was the main plan today, get them into some fresh soil, because like I said, that old soil mix, it ain't doing it. It wasn't doing it. So it's nicely done. And this soil mix is super fluffy, so give it a nice little pat down as well. Yeah, so what are you guys repotting up this week? Are you just growing right now, no repotting going on? If you're repotting something, let me know. Post it in the comments below. Let me know what you're repotting. And what I do is once I've finished watering and I repot everything that I want, I'll give it one last water depending on how the soil's looking. So that's completely fine too. Who is next? I think I'm gonna go with this one. Another tip is don't do like me and leave the plants to get too dry before you repot them. It's a lot easier to repot them when the soil's a little bit moist instead of it being completely dry. Saw that last one just was falling apart in my hand, so this one's looking a little bit dry, so we might have the same thing again, but no, we get it done. There we go. Nice. There we go. Alright, that's what I'm talking about. You see how it just is nicely high up in the soil? Gives it so much more space. Get the soil nicely around it, and it's already repotted. No messing around with it. See, I love that. That's ideal. That is ideal. Give it one little push down. Get that nicely in there. Who's next? Probably you. We're just picking the largest ones, rinse and repeat. And of course, we'll give these the ones that are left over, good water before we're finished as well. And like I said, they're a little bit on the drier side, right? So gotta make sure we take care of them. I'm gonna go with this one. This one looks more moist. So like I say, with this culantro batch, I wanna make some green seasoning. That is my goal with this. I don't know if it's gonna turn out that way, we'll see, but the goal is to make some green seasoning. So I can add that to some food. And perfect, that's the goal with this. So sometimes you can't plan too ahead, you just have to see how things are going in the garden and just take things as they come. Don't overthink it. You see those first couple where I was not getting it perfect, now it's perfect, and you can see that I don't have to move the plant around too much, I just put it in there. Because you just have to gauge how much soil you need at the beginning. Once you gauge how much soil you need at the beginning, it just becomes so much easier. Give it one little press down and then get a little bit of soil around it. Well, I can't wait to see how these turn out. I think I've grown culantro once before, probably had one tester in the 5-inch, but as you can see this time around I'm doing a lot more. And I would say these days, recently, I've tried to limit the amount of plants that I'm growing as well. I realized that last year I grew quite a lot, and the tent was kind of getting a little bit too busy. I like it where it's a little bit quieter, where I can kind of like focus on maybe 1 or 2 herbs and think about what I want to use with them and watch them grow intentionally instead of just trying to grow a bunch of different things with no real plan or a strategy behind it. So I think nowadays, or what I want to do now, is start to be more intentional, focus on 1 or 2 herbs that I really want to start to grow, and then go from there. I'm gonna go for this one. Maybe try to go for these 2. All right, let's do this. Now this one feels a little bit heavier. Let's see. There we go. The feeling when the plant just pops out of the tray is like, it's just the best feeling ever. People that garden and they do this, they know what it is. You know what I'm talking about. It's the best feeling ever, because obviously if it starts to break apart in your hands, when you take it out, it's not ideal, but when you get a nice little pop out like that and it's just nicely done, it just feels good. You just know that you've done the right stuff. You watered it enough, you're repotting it at the right time, all of that. Let's get that nicely pushed in. I think sometimes with the smaller ones, they benefit from going a little bit deeper in the pot instead of it being as high like the larger ones, just because it gives it a little bit of protection. It gives it a little bit of protection when they're deeper down. So some of them, depending on the size of the plant, you can adjust how deep you want it. I think we're good with that one. Let's get a little bit more. Put that in there. Sometimes you can tell you need a little bit. This is a smaller one, so this is going to be a little bit harder to repot. You can see these are pretty resilient, and you can see too, again, really small one, but look at those roots already. So, sorry. Again, deep roots with these, but don't know if I'm going to be doing any new seed starts until these start to develop a little bit. Still a little bit undecided, especially thinking about what I want to grow as well next, or along with this. I think I'm about 2 herbs at a time, 2 to 3 herbs max at a time, or it's fine for me. Let's get that there. A little bit of soil, let's just top that off a little bit. And we are done with the first initial batch. Now we've got 2 more to go. So I think I'm gonna go with this one and and this one. So final 2. So we filled this tray. This one feels a little heavier too, so I can always tell it's gonna be a messy one. There we go. Nicely set it in there. And one more. This one. Gotta do this one here. Oops. Not the cleanest one, that one, but very good. We're okay. Set to make that settle. There we go. Planting this one a little bit deeper. Not intentional. It's just not the best release, but still gets the job done. And it's kind of an experiment too. You can see the difference between how they grow as they start to develop, depending on how deep you plant them. So I think what I'm realizing with this whole garden thing is that there's no right or wrong way of doing something. Just do it. Just get it done, and then you can see what happens afterwards. And if the plant doesn't grow the way you want, so you can try again. Plenty of seeds out there, right? And we are finished. And we are done. So this is the whole tray completely done. I'm gonna clean up here a little bit. Gotta tidy up things. Remove this bottom tray before I put it back in the tent, but looking pretty good. I'll probably water these off, and pretty happy with that repotting. So over the next couple of weeks, hopefully they grow nicely on the top shelf where I'm going to be putting them to give them a little bit more space, but I'm pretty pleased with that. And yeah, so that's the end of the video. If you like the video, subscribe, like the video, and share it to other people to show them a little bit of how to, not just how to repot, but just my thought process behind something, and it might help you in your garden journey as well. So hope you guys have a good evening, and stay tuned.